Welcome everybody for this afternoon's topic talk. Well, we're about to get started. Please take out your phones real quick if you haven't already. Please scan this QR code so you can check in. Check-in will give you credit for being here and gives us engagement insights so we can continue our program and make it the best it can be. Just by checking in today, you instantly earn 400 points. Your point balance grows with each time you engage with us. You can earn points by attending events, engaging in our program, and even by just hanging out at the hub. These points are redeemable for awesome swag like sweatshirts, t-shirts, tumblers, and hats, and even some other fun perks like vending machine snacks, priority and space reservations, and extended hours of access at the hub. If you checked in today, at the end of the semester, the most engaged member will earn dinner with our esteemed president, Catherine Rowe. So, once again, welcome everybody for a fantastic topic talk today. My name is Jonathan Powell. I'm the community team lead here at the Entrepreneurship Hub. Thank you for taking the time for joining us here today. I'm excited to introduce you all to our amazing alumni finder here in just a few minutes. But today, just a quick rundown. First, I'll introduce our guests, and second, I'll just hand it to them and let them take it away. With that being said, I'm so excited to invite Isabel Hirama to the Hub community today.
Woo! Yeah. Thanks, guys. Jonathan, are you going to talk more about me or should I talk now?
Yes, I do have a little bit more about you.
Cool.
You know what? Like I said, she's a founder. She graduated with her bachelor's in 2014, graduated with her MSBA in 2017. Her topic talk today is how to cold email startups. Isabel is currently a data scientist, but began her career in marketing for startups, including becoming head of marketing at Estonian startup Jobbatical. After a successful cold email outreach to the company, Isabel lives in London, where she just said she got her permanent residency. Absolutely. And she is passionate about empowered self-agency, collaborative creativity, and innovation for human flourishing. With that being said, I'll pass it on to Isabel.
Amazing. Hey, everyone. So good to see everyone. And also shout out to my husband, Johnny, who's also in the Zoom, who is also a William Mary alum, and he might like chime in at some point during this talk. And yes, okay, so before we like put up my slides, or maybe they're already up, I just can't see them, but I want to like get a read of the room briefly first. So maybe I'll get like a show of hands. I want to know like where people are in their journey or like how much people have or haven't worked with startups before. So let's start with, okay, has anyone here founded a startup? I think I know there's going to be, yes, at least one. Awesome. Oh, and okay, yes, is that Jonathan on the right side? Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, who here has, you can also raise your hand multiple times. Has anyone here worked for a startup? Okay, oh, I see someone's hand in the back. Oh, and also Johnny on the Zoom raising your hand. Nice. And yes, also anyone else on the Zoom, you can raise your hand too, virtually or in person. Okay, and has anyone here like not worked with a startup? Oh, cool, Lana, I see you raised your hand. Awesome. Has anyone like not worked or either founded or worked for a startup, but you want to at some point in the future? Nice. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, great. So everyone here, like, unsurprisingly, has some sort of connection to startups, either like founded one, has worked for one, or wants to work one in the future. That's good, because if you didn't, I don't know why you would even come to this talk. So awesome. Yes. So maybe now we can pull up my slides. Or Jonathan, tell me if they're already up and I just have to like look at a different screen.
I need her slides.
I thought,
Oh, God.
If she has them, just give us a quick second, Isabel.
Isabel, if you have your slides, you can share them on your end.
oh, I can just screen share this. Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes everything even easier. Okay. Let me share.
Perfect.
Do you guys see this?
We do.
Okay, I'm gonna put it into slideshow mode. Oh, now I can't see you guys. Wait, let me try to just pull you guys back up somehow. Don't know. Well, okay. For now, I can't see you guys. So like later, if I need to see you guys to like for raised hands or something, I'll try to like change the screen around. But okay, so yes. So my topic today that I want to share about is how to cold email startups to get responses and maybe even a job. And this is what I'm going to cover. I won't read this all because this is just what I'm about to share with you guys. But I especially want to draw your attention to keep an eye out for two things. One is these in pink, the 2 secret ingredients, which I'm going to reveal. Which basically the stuff in pink is like, if you forget everything else from this talk, I hope the stuff in pink is what you remember. So keep an eye out for when I reveal the 2 secret ingredients, which are, in my opinion, the 2 most important things to remember when reaching out to startups. And then the last thing in pink is this chatbot live demo that I'm going to show you guys. My husband and I made this yesterday in just like an hour. It's very easy to make a custom GPT. We can also like answer questions about how we made this, but basically it will sort of walk you through the process that I'm going to share. And yeah, I'm excited to sort of try out a demo in that. The goal is not for it to write emails for you. We actually tried really hard to get it to not write the email for you, but we just made this in like an hour. So sometimes it will end up writing the email for you, but that's not the point. I want you guys to be able to write your own emails. This is just sort of to walk you through the process and give you ideas. But okay, let me start with telling you a little more about me. So I think an important thing to share about myself, number one, my childhood, is that I was a diplomat kid and I grew up mostly outside of the US, in a bunch of different countries, mostly in Europe and Asia. Some of my formative years were spent in Austria, Switzerland, and Taiwan. And so because of that, I've always been like very curious about how people do things in different parts of the world, how people think differently. And I feel like that is something that really led to me being interested in like startups and entrepreneurship and also innovation and technology more generally, just sort of like, what are all the different possible ways that this world could be? Because I know from experience, it's like not exactly the same everywhere. And so that kind of led me to want to study psychology and philosophy when I came to William and Mary. I was psychology major and philosophy minor and loved both of those. I think of that as the sort of study of people and the study of ideas. And then number 3, 2014 to 2016 is when I worked for this Estonian future of work startup. I'll get to more of that on the next slide about how I landed the job, what the cold email was, what that experience was like. But I ended up becoming their head of marketing and partially in Estonia, partially as a digital nomad. Then after that, big plot twist, I decided to do a huge career pivot into tech. Which involved basically that took around 2 years. I did 1 year of grad school doing the MSBA program at William Mary. I did a machine learning fellowship in London and a software engineering boot camp in New York City. And then after that was landing the type of interviews for the both software engineering and data science roles that I wanted. And then now I've been working as a data scientist for the past 6 years or so in Silicon Valley and now in London. But today, that's like not really what I'm focusing on, although I will put a link in the chat later for my husband and I are doing this sort of like monthly office hours series for data and tech careers where people can come to this online event and ask us questions if they're trying to get into data and tech careers. So if people do have questions about that, you can come to that event. The next one's going to be November 22nd. And yeah, at the bottom here, I have some of my biggest passions: collaborative creativity, innovation and ethics of emerging technology, and human flourishing more generally. So yeah, anything related to all of those things really fascinates me. And now I'll share a little bit about the cold email that landed me this Estonian startup job in 2014. So I had just graduated from William Mary. Well, I'd graduated in spring, 2014. That summer, I was working a very boring, kind of soul-sucking temp job at a law firm in their marketing department that I just sort of found through a temp agency to try to just land a job until I found something long-term. I did not like it. When that temp, they offered me a full-time job at the end of my 3 or 4 months as a temp, but I was like, no, I can't be like sitting in this cubicle at this law firm updating their website all day for all of my time. I can't do that. And so then I started, applying for jobs. I was applying for different full-time jobs, but wasn't really getting a ton of traction. And I found that startups were much more like interested in working with me, especially because I was willing to do kind of freelance part-time stuff. So before I had this Estonian startup job, I had this one random sort of sales business development job for like a mental health app, reaching out to therapists and life coaches and having calls with them. That was fun. But then this Estonian startup, so I read an article in TechCrunch about this startup called Jabatical, which they have pivoted since then, but at the time they were focused on helping people find startup jobs abroad, like in different countries, sort of a job board. And they had just launched, and I found that they had a great, compelling vision, great website, except a lot of English errors. Clearly no one on their team, on their founding team, was a native English speaker. And so I was like, okay, this is my in. I'm going to email them basically saying, hey, you should hire me just for, a couple hours as a freelancer. I can fix all the errors on your website. And that would be my foot in the door to maybe do more with them. And that ended up working. I got a response from the CEO and I had a call with her. And first they hired me to fix the English errors on their website. Then they hired me on sort of 10 hours a week basis to do their social media. And then after a few months of that, they said, hey, we want to fly you over to Estonia and you can become our head of marketing. And head of marketing didn't mean that much at the time because it was very small. There were like, 5 people. But by the time I left, there were like 20 something people. And now, 5, 6 years later, I'm no longer with them, of course, but I think they have like 60 or 70 people. And they have now pivoted to help people with more of the relocation and visa aspect of moving abroad, which is, even more of a beast often than even finding a job. But that was sort of the cold email that landed me that job. And the reason I wrote that cold email to the CEO, like no idea if she would ever respond, but she did, is I was reading the book by Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Workweek, which probably a lot of you have read. If not, I really recommend it. It's pretty old at this point, but I still think there's a lot of gold in there. And one of his challenges in the book was write 3 cold emails to people you think will never respond. And I only ended up writing one, which was this one, but it got me the job in Estonia. And you can see in this picture here, that's me and Johnny, who is, now my husband. We went to Estonia, or the first time I went to Estonia, I went on my own. And then for the second summer when I went, he came with me and he got an internship at a different Estonian startup. Big fan of Estonia. If you guys want to cold email startups in Estonia, I definitely recommend it. Estonia is a very tech forward country. There's like free internet everywhere. E-governance is really huge. It's great. At the end of this, if we have time at the end, I have an actual screenshot of the specific cold email that I sent, and we can sort of look at it and analyze why it worked. But that's sort of if we have time at the end. What I want to get more into is first, why cold email startups, and then really get into my sort of process of actually how you do it and how can you make it successful. So first of all, why? Like I sort of hinted before in my story, I found that startups were much more interested in sort of letting me create my own job, letting me pitch stuff to them. Startups they're not a big company where they have a very specific way of, budgeting for headcount yet. They're a lot more flexible. They might not know exactly who they need to hire yet, or maybe they know they need to hire someone for something, but they just haven't gotten around to actually making the job posting because they have so many other fires to fight. So it can be a lot more flexible. I also find that startups are much less likely to have your resume just get stuck in a black hole of, being read by a machine and never actually a human. Startups, I think it's much more likely that your email will actually reach a human. So that's why I think it's great to cold email them. Also, as a student, if you are not at the point yet of being able to work full time because you're not that close to graduating, I think that startups, there's a lot more flexibility to do something a couple hours a week, or, sort of create your own internship, even if they don't have an official internship program. So yeah, and then the experience you get in a startup is just so valuable. Because I was one of the first employees at this Estonian startup, although I was working in marketing specifically, I also kind of got to dip my toes in the water of all sorts of other jobs. Like I got to work with their data scientists a little bit, which is part of what inspired me to become a data scientist. I got to do some of their business development. I got to talk to the investors, things like that. It was, really, really great experience sort of seeing how a company is really run. And now let's get to my different elements. And now I'm actually thinking about whether I should go through the elements or whether we should do this while doing the live demo. Kind of thinking doing the live demo. The only thing is I think that ideally someone from your guys' end should be sharing the screen for the live demo so that they can type. I wonder if maybe, let's see.
Why don't we have
Jonathan,
you share your screen, but have someone be like the guinea pig? They're kind of like verbally saying what you type in and then you
okay,
type
so
it
like
in.
I type, yeah, that could work. Okay, yes. Any objections from the room of like having me share these steps while also doing the live demo? Maybe Jonathan, you're the person who could tell me if you have any objections because you are going to be the guinea pig when we do this.
I have no objections.
Alrighty, okay. Let's then, so don't worry, we're still gonna cover like all of the ingredients. We're just gonna do it while doing the live demo. So this is also, you guys can also follow along yourself. Like if you go to this website, tinyurl.com/FelixGPT, you can try this out, or you can just follow along with me. So this is just a custom GPT. Anyone can make a custom GPT on ChatGPT. And this is something you can also just like find on the like GPT marketplace. Because we created it. This is by Jonathan Mills because it's on my husband's account. But yes, okay, let me see if I can have the slides and the GPT open side by side. I think that will be the easiest way for us to do this. Oh, wait a second. Now are you guys only able to see? Let me pause the share and just restart it again so I can share both of the windows. And what we're gonna do here is basically like have Jonathan sort of talk. It's going to prompt Jonathan, like asking him questions about what kind of cold email he would be giving us, like be writing to a startup. And it's going to sort of give him some help. Okay. Can you guys see both the slides and the GPT now?
Yes.
Amazing. And is is this
If
text big enough
you
to actually
on the
read?
top left corner of your GPT window, if you press that minimize, that will just make it a little bit bigger.
Oh, that's good. Okay, thanks, Danny.
Yeah.
And for people in the room, like, is this text big enough? Like, are you going to be able to see what I'm typing here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or should I zoom in at all?
It's perfect.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so let's go back to this first step. Okay, so this is how you start the GPT. You can just click begin. And we called it Felix because Felix is related to luck. But the idea of this is you're creating your own luck by doing cold outreach to different startups. Okay, so it's saying, hey, I'm Felix. I'm here to create your own luck by crafting a cold email. And together we'll go through 3 steps to make your outreach feel personal and compelling. So first of all, it's deciding what to offer. And as you can see, that's the same thing that I am sharing here. So yeah, okay, so Jonathan, it's gonna give you this choice, like which of these 3 things would you want to be offering to startups? Are you going to be applying to full-time roles, freelance or contract roles, or micro freelancing or volunteering? Which the difference of what I'm saying between freelance or contract role is that would be sort of a recurring thing, like 10 hours a week or something, whereas micro freelancing or volunteering would be like doing a one-off paid project, or volunteering might be like just volunteering to do something for free, not long-term unpaid work, not an unpaid internship. Those are still illegal as far as I know. So definitely don't do like long-term unpaid work. But if there's like a specific event they're running that you want to volunteer at or something, if you don't have a preference, I would suggest choosing option 2 here, but tell me about your situation and what you would be wanting to offer.
Go ahead. You can talk. She can hear you.
Oh, okay, perfect. So I'm gonna go with freelance in terms of just having like that freedom of having to like choose your own schedule, choose what you want to do, and choosing what class you're able to work with.
Yeah.
Absolutely freelance.
Awesome. Okay, so let's say freelance. Okay, it says freelance or contract work is an excellent choice, offers flexibility. So now we're going to get to this part, which is choosing which skills to offer. And I suggest here, if you look on the left side, I suggest you can either think about like degree related skills related to something you're studying, or general skills like content creation or in-person event-based work. But also you can use this bot to sort of do this guided discovery of like giving you ideas. So, but tell me, like, do you already know what specifically you would want to be offering, what type of skill, or do you want to do the guided discovery route?
Let's do guided discovery.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Say guided discovery. And okay, so if this was like, if I had your resume right here, I would just literally copy and paste your entire resume. But I think it'll be easier if you just like talk for a minute about like what you're studying, what your experience is, and I'll just like type here and we'll put that in and see what it says. So tell us about yourself and your experience.
In terms of studying, I would say I'm currently undecided, but for what I'm good at, I would say I'm good at public speaking. I'm good at like establishing positive emotional connections. So I guess that's like what is it, public relations. I would say I'm also good at trying to come up with this on the spot.
Sure, sure.
Or I failed the interview.
You can say like also like what
Oh,
your
yeah.
career goal is at the entrepreneurship center or what other jobs you've done
She
or
literally just-
internships.
I'm currently a community team lead at the Entrepreneurship Hub.
Yeah. Cool. And what year are you in college again?
Sophomore,
Okay.
the second year.
And do you have any like summer jobs, even if it's just like being like a lifeguard or something, like other summer jobs or things we can mention?
I've worked at a real estate company. I've worked canvassing for a political campaign. Yes, those are the 2 summer jobs.
Nice. And tell me just like some of the classes that you are taking right now.
Right
Or
now,
recently. Yeah.
principles of accounting, social psychology.
Mhm.
What's another one? Natural psychology and intro to programming.
Cool, cool, cool. And do you have any experience with like online communications or social media content creation or making videos?
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
In fact, aren't you the story?
Anything else? Also, if people in the room who know him have ideas of what I should put here, also tell me.
He's also started a student org this semester with DECA. So he is the founding member of that chapter for the university for undergrad.
MA, and what does that mean or stand for?
It stands for Distributive Education Clubs of America.
Ooh, and what does that mean?
It's weird. They technically got rid of like it's just DECA now. They got rid of the distributive education system.
Okay.
But essentially, it's a business club.
Oh, okay. Cool, cool, cool. Anything else people suggest I put here? Oh, maybe can I put your LinkedIn? Can I find you on LinkedIn? I think we are connected on LinkedIn. I should have just done that earlier also, like, let's just paste in your entire LinkedIn or like some of the information. Here you are. Oh, this is good. I'll put this in. And oh, nice. Yeah, okay. I'm just gonna paste this stuff in. All right, let's see what it suggests. Okay, so it's suggesting content creation and social media marketing, community and public relations, sales and outreach support, organizational and strategic support, project-based. Nice. So you could, if you were just doing the chatbot by yourself, you could like ask it to explore more deeply, but just in the interest of time, let's just pick one of these. Which one do you want to pick just for this exercise?
Community and public relations.
Amazing. Okay. Cool. Oh, and maybe it's gonna, okay, cool. So now it's going to the next. This is good that the chatbot's behaving so far because, it's not like I'm telling it exactly what to do in the background. Like it sort of has a mind of its own. So going well fine so far. Okay, so for picking the right startups, we're not going to do this right now. We're not going to start a spreadsheet of our own right now. But what I really recommend people do is start a multi-tab spreadsheet, ideally Google Sheets. So you can have multiple tabs. And for each tab, have it be sort of a theme. So like on one tab, you might have social impact startups. On one tab, you might have, education startups. Like maybe you're also really interested in like when I was doing something similar to this in a more recent time around, I had like ethics of AI startups. I had like sustainable energy and transportation startups. I had like autonomous vehicle startups, you know, sort of different tabs. And on each tab, you start to create a list of startups that are in that sort of area. And the reason to do it this way is people sometimes talk about being T-shaped, which is like have broad expertise, but then go deep into one area. I say don't just be T-shaped, be at least triple T-shaped. Or another letter that's sort of like that is actually a W or an M, like, you know, with 3 prongs. So sort of like have multiple areas that you go a little deeper in. And that can sort of, rather than just having one big master list of like 100 startups that are just like all over the place, that can be kind of overwhelming, but you pick the different areas, the different themes. And then we won't go through this whole area exercise right now because I think this, you know, this could take like weeks for you to do lots of research on. But then once you've created your sort of spreadsheet and you have your different tabs, the ways that I suggest finding the startups is through, is through, I think it's obvious you can look at LinkedIn or Well-Found, which was formerly AngelList. Like those are websites that have a lot of different startups on them. But I actually more recommend B and C here, which is accelerators or incubator websites. So for example, like Y Combinator is a famous one. There's so many others like Techstars, you know, different things like that, Entrepreneur First. You can even ask ChatGPT for ideas if you can't think of any more. But basically any of those websites, any of those incubators or accelerators will have a like page on their website where they list all of the startups that have either are going through their incubator right now or have gone through in the past. And that's great because it's more vetted. Like if you're just looking at a huge list of startups that exist out there, you might not know, like, is this real? Is this just like one person in their basement? Is this like, you know, has it had any backing? Does it even still exist? Something like Y Combinator, you know, does a lot of vetting. And so that's a more curated list. Then another thing is looking at VC firms' portfolio pages. You know, I'm sure like Graham is familiar with this, like every VC firm usually will have a portfolio page that lists like, here are all the startups that we've invested in the past. And they often even have like their own jobs website. So for example, like Sequoia Capital, it could be like, oh, here's all the startups that are hiring for a job that we've invested in all these startups and here's what they're hiring for. But we're not talking about full-time jobs right now. We're talking about freelancing. So even just looking at what the different like startups that they have invested in before. And then lastly, another good resource is, which hopefully you guys are already looking at, but like tech and startup news websites like TechCrunch or The Verge, different things like that. Those are good because when they write an article about a startup, it's often because the startup has hit some sort of milestone recently, like maybe they just raised a big round of funding, so they have money to spend on freelancers or other things. And maybe they have just reached, like they've launched in a new country or something like that. And so it's sort of like, that's the best source if you want to have sort of the timely updates and like know when startups hit different milestones. So, okay, let's say, maybe Jonathan, tell us like, we won't actually go create a multi-tab spreadsheet for you right now, but can you think of like 2 or 3 categories of what the different tabs on your startups would be, or on your spreadsheet would be for different categories of startups?
I would say 2 of the different tabs would be definitely community engagement and would like mental health, community engagement and mental health.
Mm. Yes. So let's just like actually ask the bot here because it's saying, can you identify one specific startup? So let's say like, can you give us some suggestions of startups in those areas? Because yeah, you can like ask the bot whatever you want. Like you don't necessarily have to follow its specific instructions. Okay, it's searching the web. Cool. And of course, though, you know, it can always hallucinate. So you don't know if all of these are actually real. But let me just Google this one to make sure it actually exists. And if it does, we can just go with that one. Of course, you know, if we had more time, you would want to like actually like look at all different ones. Mental health support. Okay, so this looks like it's real. And maybe let's just pick one from the other.
They also source where it's coming from, so you could also just look at that as well.
I don't know if I trust their sources. I just want to see, is this like an actual See, like, I don't know, this looks like a different citizen lab. I don't know if this is like a real one. Let's see what it. Okay, I don't think this
I'm
is a
not
real.
saying to trust their source, but like if you click on the source and it's like, oh, this source is a bad source, then that's like a way to say, oh yeah, it's hallucinating.
Yeah, yeah. Let's look if this is a real one. This looks cool. Okay, how do you feel about this one, Jonathan? It's like a mental health startup that focuses on people thriving at work.
Oh, yes. Thriving at work, yes.
Cool. Okay. And of course, like this is just a demo. Like if you're really doing this, I would want you to really like research them because actually I almost forgot this is time to reveal secret ingredient number 1, which is genuine excitement. I think that the reason why I want you guys to do this thing with the tabs and picking your different areas of interest is that that can help you find startups that you're actually genuinely excited about, that you would be genuinely excited to work with. You really connect with their mission. And I think that can go a long way to having your outreach really stand out. So of course, yeah, if we had more time, I would want Jonathan to like really go sort of and like research a lot of these, make the whole spreadsheet, like have a bunch of startups you're super excited about. But just for now, let's just go with this one that it has, suggested for us. Okay, so now we're getting to the real meat here, which is crafting a great email. And okay, so it's going to walk us through the different steps. So the first step is to get the right tone. And this is super crucial because what I mean by tone is like, how does the startup present itself? However it is sort of talking about itself, you should match that tone. So some startups might be like very serious on their website, very technical. Some might be much more like lighthearted or witty. And what I'm suggesting here, oh, it said, are you ready to start with the first step? Let's say yes. What I'm suggesting doing here is basically, oh, okay. Well, sometimes the bot will just like go and find their tone by itself. Usually what it does is, oh yeah, okay. If you have any specific text, you can paste it here. Let's just do that also. So basically say we would go to like their about page or something, their blog maybe. I always recommend looking at startups' blogs because you can see, like what type of stuff they talk about and care about. So let's just paste like a couple of paragraphs from their blog here so it can get a better sense of the tone. But I think genuine and caring and supportive sounds like it's likely accurate. Empathy, trust, psychological safety. Cool. Okay. So yeah, that would be the tone. Getting the right tone is really important because if you're about to reach out to like a very serious and technical tone startup and you use like too lighthearted of a tone, it's just not going to match. Like they're just going to feel like you don't vibe with them. So having the right tone is important. Okay, so are you ready to go to step 2? Let's say yes. Step 2 is having a good subject line. And okay, again here, even though Johnny and I tried to tell it to not write content for you in this bot, sometimes it still does it anyway. So these are some that it's suggesting. What I mean by writing a hook subject line is like write something that would actually make them want to click on the email. So for example, my subject line when I sent my successful cold email to the Estonian startup was typos and errors on your website. That was my subject line because basically that's, I knew that they would be like, ooh, typos and errors on our website. Like, let me click on this. And then once they clicked on it, they got my pitch for why they should hire me to fix the typos and errors on their website. So like, don't have your subject line be like college student seeking internship. Like they don't care about that. That's not important to them. Like have it be focused on them. And so yeah, so ideally again, if we had more time, I would want you to just like use these as inspiration and then think of your own. But just maybe you can, I mean, or if you do have one that comes to mind, you can tell me, or maybe just read these and pick one of them that you want us to use for now.
Let's do, wait, repeat the question again?
For your subject line, like, do you have any ideas of like what you would want the subject line to be for the outreach, or do you want to just use one of these? And if so, you can just pick one of them.
I say use one of those because I really like strengthening workplace well-being with PR and community insights.
Okay, yes, let's do that one. And again, like part of why we tried to get this chatbot to not just write things for you is I do think that this sounds a little bit like canned, like it doesn't really sound like your voice. So like when you're really doing this, I really recommend that you guys think of your own subject lines. But let's just use this for now because I want to like show you guys all the steps. Okay, so we're on step 2 now. So now it's going to go to step 3. Okay, choose who to address and find an email address. So something that I often do is like, if I'm emailing a startup, you can just use their general about email address, but you don't have to, but you can address it to like a specific person in the email. So this is something I don't think we should like spend time doing right now live on the call, but let's just say that we found that the email is like, you can either find their general email like about@unmind.com or team@unmind.com, or if you can find their hiring email, that's also good. So let's say we found one that's called like careers@unmind.com. And let's say we found that their head of, you could either address it to their head of like HR or recruiting, but I'd say that like, what was the area that we said you were gonna have your focus be on here? Was it like community engagement or something?
Engagement and public relations.
Yeah, let's say we find their head of community. And let's say we can't find their email address, but we like find their name and like their name is Emily. So basically like you can email just the careers website, but address it to Emily or Emily and team. And I find that that is better than just saying like, hi team or hi unmind or something like that, because it shows that you, even though you didn't find the person's email address, you like figured out who the person was. It makes it more likely that they're gonna maybe like forward the email to that person. Okay, number 4, now we're really getting into the contents of the email. So the very first sentence that I recommend doing after like, hi, Emily and team, is to establish a connection to the startup's vision. So don't just go in being like, hi, Emily and team, I want a freelance job. Like, again, they don't care about that. But if you go in and you establish your connection to what they're doing, to their vision, and establish some sort of credibility, like that's gonna make them want to keep reading the email. So when I was emailing this Estonian startup, I was like, hey, I said something like, I love your mission of helping people work abroad. I've had the chance to work abroad in like Taiwan and Switzerland before, and it was really transformative or something like that. And so let's see. Okay, let's see what it is recommending here. It says it recommends, hi, Emily and team, is someone passionate about the role of open communications and mental well-being. Is excited to see blah, blah, blah. And again, like, I feel like this is a little generic and sounds like it's written by AI, so I would not recommend actually emailing with this, but this is sort of gives you an example of like, you know, what the type of thing you could say, but ideally make it more your own. So for now, I don't know, if you have ideas of how you'd want to tweak this, tell me, or tell me if you just want to use this as like a placeholder for now as we continue.
So we just use it as a placeholder.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's go with that. So now that was number 4. So now number 5, pitching your offering in a clear, compelling way. This is really important that you are being really specific when you pitch to them. And what I always recommend is this part here, using a list or a menu of offerings. And I really recommend using either bullet points or a numbered list so that you can basically be like, hey, I recommend, or I like can offer any of these following 3 things to you. So let's see. So it's suggesting community engagement strategies, content creation for PR, public relations outreach. Yes. Does this look good to you, Jonathan? Are there any other specific bullet points you want to add?
And it looks good to me.
Cool. And again, like if ideally you would rewrite this in your own words, but let's use this for now for the demo purposes. Okay, and then step 6, and again, why I'm having these very specific steps is I want you to keep it super short. Like no one at a startup has time to read a super long dissertation about why they should hire you. They want like the credibility, what are you offering? And then I recommend having one more sentence to strengthen that connection and credibility again. So basically it's saying like in step 5, you said, this is what I'm offering, bam, bam, bam. And then step 6, you have a sentence about like, why they should trust you to do that. So it's suggesting that you say, as a community lead at William Mary's Entrepreneurship Hub, I've worked on engagement strategies that build trust and community skills I'd love to bring to Unmind to help amplify Nova's mission. Yeah, maybe we can add in, let's tweak this a little bit. Like, what is like a specific part of your job at William Mary, at the Entrepreneurship Hub here? Like, even just what you're doing now, you could be like, for example, I have like ran sessions where I host guest speakers or something like that. Or is there another specific part of the job you think is more relevant to highlight?
No, I was gonna say just that, hosting events, being the kind of the, I don't wanna say the face, but one of the many faces that the Entrepreneurship Hub has.
Yes, okay.
Client facing.
Client facing, yes, yes. Client facing. Let's just say like, let's add in how I do client facing, like host, or should we call this like leadership of external events?
And you can also add in like creating like the run of shows or editing the run of shows, fine tuning so they run smoothly.
Yeah, ooh, let's also call this like emceeing show content. See how it adds that in. Nice. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Shall we say we're going to continue?
Like it.
Awesome. Okay, and then lastly, step 7, ending with a simple call to action. So yeah, the suggestions it gives here are the type of thing I would suggest. Like, either you can say, oh, I see someone's in the waiting room. Why is it saying that I can admit them? Am I a host now? Okay. We'll do it. Okay, cool. So yeah, so ending with a simple and easy call to action is very important. Like, you want to end the email with something specific you're asking them, and you want to make it easy for them. Like, you're not asking them to make a decision right now about hiring you. You want to suggest something specific. So this is the one I usually go to, which is like, I'd love to set up a time to talk. But also you can say like, hey, can I send you over my portfolio? I think in this case that we're doing, you wouldn't really have necessarily a portfolio. That would be more like if you're pitching design work or something. Or you can also, if you're not sure if Emily, who we made up, is the right person to reach out to, your call to action can be like, could you tell me the right person? Could you connect me with the right person on your team to pitch this to? And it's good to just pick one. We should just pick one of these to do. Another thing that I didn't include in this presentation, but is important, is like follow up. You could do a follow, like say you pick that you want to request a meeting, but then they don't respond. Then you could be like, let's follow up with a different call to action in a few days or in a week. Like if they don't respond to wanting to take a meeting, maybe you could follow up, be like, hey, I wanted to follow up on this. If you're not the right person for me to reach out to, could you connect me to the right person? And maybe then they'll be like, ah, okay, fine, I'll forward it to so-and-so. But yeah, how does this sound for just doing the requesting a meeting as the call to action for now?
Oh yeah.
Is that good, Jonathan?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Let's do the first one. Okay, and I think it's gonna do the whole email. And again, like Johnny and I really tried to not make it just like write the whole email for you, but ChatGPT is just too helpful. So here we go. So this is just an example of an email. Again, I really don't recommend you just like copy and paste and send this, just use this for inspiration. But you see how it's like, it's nice and short. It's not like pages long. It has this nice set of bullet points that sort of will draw their eye to be like, okay, there's something easy I can read in this email. And then I don't really know why it bolded the last thing. I wouldn't necessarily bold the call to action, but I like how it has it as its own sort of like final sentence so that it's like really clear what you're asking for. Okay, so before we get to the next slide, which is the secret ingredient, maybe let's like pause. I'm curious, like Jonathan, for any questions or reflections you have on this, or for anyone else in the room, like any like thoughts on this process or questions about it or reflections. Does this seem like something that's like, oh, this is actually pretty easy and doable for me? Or does it still seem like it's kind of overwhelming? Like, what would I even like offer them? I guess like, so I'm curious to know from the room, like what seems either the easiest or the hardest aspects of this, or what questions do you have?
I would absolutely say that this, like, the entire time you were running through it in my head, I was like, this is a fantastic bot that you have created. Like, it just,
Yeah.
me personally, it just made it seem like so, like, streamlined and easy to just think of these things, especially like utilizing ChatGPT to come up with things like, oh, I could just do this. But of course, you just want to copy and paste it. You would just
Right.
reword it into something that's more applicable.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. What do others think? And I also can't really see if people are raising their hands, so just like shout it out.
I saw nothing difficult about it. The whole system, just like Jonathan, it seemed to take something that would normally be pretty daunting and break it down into pretty easy steps. And through the assistive AI, it seems really quite simple from this view.
Yeah. Amazing. Any dissenting thoughts of like anyone feel like, this still seems like difficult, or I have doubts, or like this part would be especially difficult for me? I'm curious to hear any of those thoughts too.
I think the most time consuming aspect of it is actually going and finding the startups.
Yeah, yeah.
Vetting them and deciding like, this is the one that I want to engage with.
Totally. Yeah, that can definitely take time. And I recommend that like that's why I like the idea of having this like running spreadsheet. Which again, when I did it for Jabatical, the Estonian startup, I didn't have a spreadsheet because I literally just sent that one at the time. But something that I've done since then is have a spreadsheet, because then it's sort of like, as you go about your day, you might be reading some startup news, you find a startup, you're like, ooh, I should add that to this tab of my spreadsheet. Like, ooh, this one goes in this tab. And then sort of over time, you kind of build up this like spreadsheet of startups that you're really interested in. And not only can you like decide which ones you then want to cold email, you can also like keep going back and checking their careers website to see if they are hiring at some point too. But yeah, that can definitely be like a hard part of like finding the actual startups, and like deciding which ones are the right ones for you to pitch something specific to.
You have any thoughts about volume versus quality with the startups?
Great question, Johnny. I think that it's kind of a balance, because you don't want to just send out like a ton of really generic emails, but if you spend too much time on just one, I mean, I was like very, I guess, both strategic but also lucky that the one really like effective cold email I sent like did end up getting me a job that I did for like almost 2 years. So I would say like don't just send one like I did, like, send a bunch, but have them be at least somewhat targeted. And that's also why I like the idea of having these sort of different categories of startups, like a lot of mental health startups, a lot of like, I don't know, education startups, things like that, because then you can maybe send somewhat similar emails to them, but still do just like a little bit of tweaking so that it's not like you have to write an entirely completely new personalized one for every single one. But yeah, someone else was also saying something in the room, I think, previously.
I just had a question. Yeah, thank you. I just had a question around like the iteration of this, or perhaps like the ROI for the ask. So
Yeah.
you're sending out all these asks. Can you train the guy to say like, I've got 10 asks out this week. I'm not hearing back from much. I need extra insights, or I need more curated content to help me perhaps develop new angles for my skill set. I'm just thinking about the analytical piece.
That is interesting. I mean, I definitely do recommend like having some sort of tracking system for tracking like what type of outreach you've done and which ones of them actually get responses. I would say that yes, you could definitely ask the bot or just ChatGPT in general, but I actually think that what might be more helpful in that case would be like showing a person who's one of your mentors or someone who's in the field, showing them an example of your outreach. And this is something, I mean, you guys can message me on LinkedIn with some of your examples if you want later. You can message me and Johnny, and we can tell you our thoughts. But like, I think that might be more helpful, because it's possible that you might be sending an email that like what you're offering is just like realistically not actually what a startup needs from a college student. And so maybe someone who's actually in the field could tell you that. And they might be like, oh, like you're kind of offering something that they probably would want someone with more experience to do, but what if you tweaked it and offered XYZ instead? Or another way, I think, to sort of just get some data on like what is sticking and what's not could be going back to this like micro freelancing idea. That's sort of what I had done with the where did that one go? here we go, micro freelancing or volunteering. Like that sort of was what I was doing with that other startup I worked with before Jabatical, where I was doing like doing the business outreach for this mental health app for like life coaches and psychologists. Like that was more of micro freelancing. It was like much shorter of an engagement. If you're pitching something smaller, or like even volunteering, again, like I definitely don't want you to be doing long-term unpaid work, but if there's like one very small specific task you would be happy to volunteer for that wouldn't take you that much time, that could be a way to just get your foot in the door and see if like, will companies even respond to me if I'm offering this for free? So some examples of stuff I do think it could be worth offering for free would be like, say it's a product that you actually use and you see that they have a lot of social media content of people doing reviews of like, here's my unbiased review of this product. Like you could email them saying, hey, I'm a big fan of your product. I'm happy to make a video for you. If you're actually a content creator as your career, you should get paid for that. But if you just want to do sort of a one-off, like quick video review, I'd say that's okay to offer for free. Or if you really like writing and they have a blog and you see that they write blog posts about some topic that you're knowledgeable about, you could be like, hey, I want to pitch like an article that I could write for free for your blog. And ideally, if you do it once for free, then you could like be like, hey, did that go well? Like, why don't you actually hire me and pay me to do this regularly? But that could be like sort of a way to like get data so that it doesn't just feel like you're just like, yeah, shouting into the void and not getting any responses.
Appreciate that.
Isabel, I have one thought to share. But first of all, this is really awesome. I think the user experience was very good. Something I've had good luck with when using ChatGPT to do something like this is then to ask it to take on the persona of the person I'm expecting to be the recipient and then critique it as Emily. And so
yes,
if you can find information on Emily, something she's posted or what her job description is, then I think it'd be really interesting to say, like, how might Emily respond to this? What are the points that she might resonate with or push back on?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good idea. Oh my gosh. Yes. Great idea. If Emily was a real person, we could actually find her. Like we
Right.
totally do that. Like even like pasting in her like LinkedIn or maybe like a blog post that she's written, or like an interview she's done. Yeah, that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So you might have this later, but in terms of like freelance and micro freelancing.
Yeah.
How does the like negotiation of like pay come into play? Like once you do engage with a freelance?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like someone else should make a whole custom chatbot to help with that, or maybe they already have, because that I'd say it will likely depend a lot on what specifically you're offering them. And the easiest way to do this is find someone who already is doing that type of freelancing and just get them to tell you like how did they negotiate it. So that's what I did. Like once I got a response from, Jabatical in 2014, they were like, okay, yeah, like you can do like fix our email, our website errors and also do our social media. I like talked to a friend who was already doing some social media freelance work. And I was like, hey, I offered this to a startup, but now I have no idea how to actually like make a contract or anything. Like, will you show me one of your contracts that you've given to a startup and like help me with what to do? And so obviously, like I was lucky that I had a friend who was already doing that. You might not for whatever you're offering, but I would say ChatGPT could definitely help with that. Like being like, hey, what are like the normal rates for this? Like, what's an example of a contract? Also, I think like looking online generally to see what like the going rates are for things. Is a good idea. And like maybe you might even be able to find some like templates online for like contracts, or maybe they are also like already hiring other freelancers, so they might have like a standard agreement that they use. But yeah, I'd say I'm not like the biggest expert on that aspect. I'd say that like that's sort of where I'm kind of like, okay, like I'm just gonna be scrappy and like figure it out for the specific like skill that I am offering.
And Isabel, I do have one more thing to add myself. Is one, again, like doing all of this makes it seem like so easy and all that stuff, just makes it so simplified. Like thinking back on a question you asked on thinking about what are some like points of like some hesitancy where someone could run into. I would say after someone goes through all this, just as like maybe like a nice little addition, something just on top to be the icing on the cake. A lot of people may go through all this thing, create the email, it's perfect. A lot of people might stop at just the send portion, pressing send and just going through it, right? So I would say perhaps adding at the end like some sort of motivational thing or reasons why you should do this, something like that, just to
Yes.
nice little addition at the end.
Jonathan, I feel like it's as if this is like a setup because I actually do have that. Maybe looked at the end of my slides and because I think this is a great time to introduce the second secret ingredient, which is self-compassion. And the reason that I bring this up as the second secret ingredient is that I've found that, well, I think that oftentimes the thing that will stop us from even starting this process or from like actually sending it even when we're ready is this sort of sense of self-judgment, where we're like, or self-doubt or self-judgment, like, oh, what if they don't respond? Like, is it stupid that I'm even offering this? Like, why would they hire me? Like, what do I have to offer? And I found that like doing self-compassion practices is really helpful for that. So trying to reframe like your different forms of self-doubt, like how can you respond to yourself with self-compassion instead? And the bot is supposed to end with that. So let's see if it actually does this. So it said, let me know if you have any file tweaks or if we're ready to send it off. Good luck. Okay, well, if we say ready, let's see if it gets to the self-compassion part. Before you send it off, remember, yes, okay, it did it. The bot got to the end. It says cold outreach can feel uncertain, but know that you've put in the effort and approach this with authenticity. Even if the response isn't immediate, every outreach helps. Good luck, Jonathan. Let me know if you'd like help with future emails or anything else along your journey. Okay, it didn't function perfectly. It's supposed to like ask you to tell it your doubts and then it will respond with a self-compassion, like a compassionate framing. Let's actually do that. Let's say like, okay, Jonathan, tell me like, what's like a self-doubt like thing that might go through your head that might stop you from like sending this or have even started the process and we can like
I go to therapy in fact. I would say them looking at the email and then just being like, no, and just not responding.
Okay, let's see what it says. Let's see if it's able to help you reframe it. It's totally naturally feel that way. Okay, wow, this is a pretty long, okay. We won't read this whole thing, but like, okay, let's put it in perspective. You're reaching out a well thought out email. It's clearly tailored, which shows genuine interest and initiative. Yep, many people receive generic pitches, so your personalized email will already stand out. Consider this email as a stepping stone, one of many on the journey. You're learning, improving, and getting comfortable with a skill that will serve you well. Give yourself credit for this effort because every outreach is a win in itself. There you go. So it's giving you a little reframing here. And yeah, and I would say like, I like this part that it says it's a stepping stone, one of many on the journey, because I think like each time you go through either like using this bot or just going through the steps yourself, that will sort of refine your career narrative. And as you're refining your career narrative, you're going to, back to the first secret ingredient, you're going to like hone in more and more about what you have genuine excitement about. And once you're like even more honed in on what you have genuine excitement about, of course, there's a lot of strategic things that you can do. Like, I don't think that it's like only excitement will just get you a job. There's like excitement combined with like being really strategic, like doing your homework, doing your research, like networking, asking for different people's input. But I think that like the genuine excitement can sort of fuel you, and then the self-compassion can sort of help you continue when things are kind of hard. Yeah, so that is basically it. And I don't think we necessarily have time to go through my unless maybe let's do more like 5 more minutes of questions and chatting. Also, if anyone has questions for Johnny, my husband, who helped create this bot, now is the time to ask them. And maybe what I'll do is I'll put this link in the chat, which has like my whole email that I wrote if you guys want to like go through later and do the little exercise of like finding the different elements that were in my email. But let's use this live time now to like any final like questions or thoughts from you guys, either for me or also for Johnny, either about startups or about like how to create a custom GPT and things like that.
Can you mention the doc that we created because of the free limit?
Yes, I want to show you guys this. So, okay, so I'll put this I'll put this whole slide deck into the chat at the end, and maybe also like Jonathan can share it with people, but it has a link to the chat bot, which is this link. But right now I have ChatGPT Premium, so it's letting me use the chat bot for a pretty long time. If you don't have ChatGPT Premium, it might run out of tokens pretty quickly. So here's a backup way to get around that. This is a link to just a Google Doc, which has basically, this is all the instructions that we wrote. Well, we didn't even write this out. We used ChatGPT to create this. Like we just talked at it, like, you know, with our voice. And then it created this like more condensed set of instructions. You would just have to copy and paste this into a regular ChatGPT conversation. So I'll show you guys how to do that right now. So it's just like a regular ChatGPT conversation. If you just copy and paste all this in here, which is basically giving it the instructions for how to become the chatbot, it'll basically just start running the chatbot for you. It may not be quite as good as the actual chatbot, but it will basically like follow the same process. So it would just go through like all the same steps that we just did with Jonathan. So yes, good call, Johnny. But yeah, from the room in the last few minutes, any like more thoughts about this or questions for either me or Johnny?
Isabel, I'm wondering if you have other peers that you know of that have had similar experiences of a cold email turning into something as productive as you've experienced.
Yeah, Johnny, I don't know, Johnny, do you want to like talk about some of your cold email success stories?
Yeah, I think there's different flavors. For me, I landed a startup in Palo Alto. Well, what I did was I applied to the position and then I simultaneously emailed the CEO, which is another way to do it. You don't just have to email them if there's a position you're already really interested in, and that can be used as a good bolster. The CEO just said like, "Oh, thanks for your application. I'll see to it that it gets reviewed." And yeah, I got an interview a couple days later. So that was a cool example. And then I also ended up working for a real estate startup a couple months or later on. And that was another interesting one where it doesn't have to be you just cold email the startup and you get the job. That one was I met someone, I asked them to kind of actually it was kind of a cold email. I asked them to get coffee without really specifying exactly what I had to offer. I just kind of met them at an event and then I asked them to get coffee and then I kind of gave my pitch more there. So I didn't send an email exactly like that, but kind of just whenever meeting someone, always following up with them. I would say I probably did that. Any person I thought interesting, I did that, and that ended up being the catalyst to get to my job. So yeah, it worked out for me as well.
It
Yeah.
might be.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Isabel.
I would say like I think that now since like I now work at a huge company for the past 6 years, like I'm less exposed to the startup world. But I think that honestly, I feel like the reason that I don't have more stories of people doing this is that I think that there are a lot of mental blocks that stop people from doing this. And I think unfortunately there's like a separated two circles Venn diagram of like it's almost completely separate of people who have the like thoughtfulness to be able to write an effective cold email is like one circle, and then the people who have the like chutzpah to actually write the cold email is a separate circle. Because I've received a lot of really bad cold emails like when I was working at the startup. And like they usually were not very thoughtful. They clearly didn't really understand what our startup was doing. They didn't have a very specific thing they were offering. So they had the guts to write it, but they didn't have the thoughtfulness to do a good job. And then there's a lot of people in my life that I think that if they really had the guts to actually write a cold email, they would do a very good job, but they sort of like are too nervous to do it. So that's why I think it's this like non-overlapping Venn diagram. And so if you can put yourself in that little tiny overlapping part of like being thoughtful enough to do it in a strategic way and actually having the boldness to do it, I think that's why it can be really successful.
Fantastic. Given time, because we want to be respectful of everyone's time, we'll just take just one more question. Just one more question for Isabel and Johnny.
So I have a question. Do you feel like startups are a really good opportunity for college students straight out of college? I feel like a lot of college students, especially today, are having trouble finding jobs in today's market. And I feel like maybe startups might be more open. Would you agree or disagree?
Yes, yeah, I think absolutely. I think that so many big companies unfortunately can be kind of elitist in how they are looking for new grad talent because there's so many new grads out there. And so they just sort of, you might use a heuristic like, oh, we hire from these 3 schools, or we only hire if you have these specific internships. Like they might have very strict rules. Whereas startups, for one thing, they don't have as many people applying to them, so they can't be as picky. But I think also oftentimes the founders of startups sort of have the type of creative and more open-minded mindset that they wouldn't even want to like, have that kind of like narrow-minded elitist attitude when hiring. I think that like many of the startup founders that I've met are some of the most like creative people and open-minded people I have ever met. And so they like the idea of like taking a chance on someone who sort of is like from a non-traditional background or from like a school they might not have heard of, or someone that's like doesn't have like a stacked internship resume with like sure perfect background. Yeah. So I do think the startups are a great opportunity in that regard. And again, just also the fact that startups are often kind of flying by the seat of their pants and like really chaotic in the background, it can make working for one kind of stressful, but you can sort of take advantage of that because again, like I said in the beginning, I think like maybe they really, really need to hire someone to like, I don't know, write new blog posts for them every week or put out new video content for them or respond to their comments on social media. They might be like, oh, we really need to hire someone, but like, oh, it's just so much work to put together the job listing, blah, blah, blah. So then if a great cold email just falls in their lap of someone offering to do this, they may be like, oh yes, finally, like now I don't have to put up that listing. We can just hire this person. So yeah. And of course, I don't want to just be all like rose-colored glasses and be like, oh, every single one of you could easily find a startup job tomorrow with this. Like, I think it is still a hard job market out there, and it might take a lot of effort and a lot of cold emailing before you might actually get something, but I do think it's very much worth trying. So yeah, I encourage you guys all to try it. Yeah, so well, thank you so much, everyone. And yeah,